to call to order today's meeting for the Town of Rome Joint Community Development Authority and Planning Commission meeting, Tuesday, March 8th. Call to order, please, and roll call from my left.
Weisinger here.
Albertson.
Goldman.
Evenson.
Janzak here.
Williams here.
Shermahorn here.
Capel here.
Right, thank you. Certified posting of the meeting.
Oh, yeah. One moment, I'll be right back. I have.
Couldn't get into trouble with that one, but we'll let that go on.
Yeah.
It's the same one. I have,
Be no running in the hallway.
because it was the same one as ours.
Okay, so I certify on Monday, February 28th, the agenda for the Town of Rome Community Development Authority and Plan Commission joint meeting for Tuesday, March 8th was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 3:15 p.m., posted at the Rome Town Hall at 3:05 p.m., posted at the Leicester Public Library of Rome at 4 p.m., and posted at the Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 3:55 p.m.
Thank you, Jamie. Approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve as printed.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Citizens' comments?
We don't have any comment cards.
Great, thank you. Number 6, information updates, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements.
I have a question. Who's acting as secretary for this one?
We're recording the meeting, and between Emily and Linda, they'll do minutes, yep.
Any updates? Current events, announcements?
Nope.
No? Then we'll go on to number 7, discussion and possible action. The review of the joint CDA and Plan Commission input received on Town of Rome Comprehensive Plan.
Great. So Sunday afternoon, you would have gotten the combined documents. That's both comments from the CDA, from Plan Commission, from the city attorney, from myself in that one document. It was divided by individual chapters. Just in looking through that, I'm not sure if that stimulated other comments or things that we wanted to add to that combined list. As far as today goes, I guess we'll kind of defer to the committee on if you want to maybe spend just a couple moments on each chapter, or if there's a specific chapters, having reviewed that information, that you want to go directly to.
Maybe it's a good time for me to ask my question I was gonna have related to later agenda items related to joint subcommittees. So I think we talked briefly about this at the last meeting, but what's going to be the intent of those subcommittees?
I think some of that will be determined today. I think the first goal of those subcommittees is going to be incorporating these changes into the comp plan. Some of them are more questions than they are necessarily like grammatical changes. Like, do we want to encompass that? What would it look like if we encompassed that? Then the secondary question to that is, do those changes mean that we would make changes to zoning code? And then where would those changes in the zoning code lie? Drafting those up, and then they would have to go through the public hearing process of Plan Commission. Likely, we would do a whole review of 360. There might be some in there in 126 and in land division too. That might be a possibility, but we would do it as a whole package and bring it as one time as comprehensive changes.
And just to clarify, the comp plan amendment, so that part of the subcommittee's role, that part of course requires the public hearing and the process as well. So it would likely be comp plan review and any text or map amendments to that. That would go through the amendment process, then review the zoning ordinance. In light of the planning document, our planning document is our comp plan. In light of that, we would then review our zoning ordinance and see if any recommended changes would be there and go through that. So it would be 2 phases, at least 2 phases at least.
But the time it's gonna take a little time.
ultimately both CDA and Plan Commission will still be able to have their 2 cents in on any changes that the subcommittee decides might need to be made, or questions, right?
Certainly, so this would likely follow a very similar process to what we did with Rome Town Center and so, for those that weren't, on committees or commissions when that was going on, what we had was our subcommittee working through that, representatives from each, parent, body, were on that, and then they were taking that to their, committee or commission, to report that out and get any feedback, bringing that in. So during the working meetings, we were still getting feedback. But then, certainly Plan Commission, as you know, would be involved, heavily during the, considerations of possible amendments to either of those documents. But CDA could be as well, as far as just putting that on their agenda and having them provide input before we get to the Plan Commission part. So during the working meetings, absolutely. After those working meetings, when we have a set of recommended changes from the subcommittee, it can go to CDA first, have them review it and give any recommendations, and then we can go through the process with Plan Commission, absolutely.
Back to your regularly scheduled programming. That clarifies for me how much we, in my mind, want to or not want to go into detail here on all this information.
Cause the subcommittee likely will probably go into some pretty in-depth detail, right? But I think it's important since it's the combined review from both committees, if there are strong feelings on something or things that were felt that were missed, that those kind of get added in this larger group before we would pare down. I know that, Chairman Hasdale couldn't be here today, but I just to express his feeling that if we go through this process, he really wants it to be viewed as wide open. So if there are, even if they maybe seem like ideas or thoughts or suggestions that we haven't done before, we haven't talked about before, that they're really introduced, that you really think of it as, you have a starting point, but it could go any place.
So should we just go through this by section and see if anybody here has comments about
Yeah.
the comments, or?
Sure. So starting with chapter 2, again, chapter 1 is just demographic information, but chapter 2, natural, agricultural, and cultural resources. If everyone brought their handy dandy copy of the comp plan also, but rather than just reading them out loud. Every summary starts with just general comments that were shared. Whether that they felt like there was no changes needed, or if there were just items like adding the 14-mile visit Rome. Objective 1 in that chapter is to ensure that natural resource aesthetic of the town is considered when planning and future development. Objective 2, ensure public access to the town's surface water resources continues into the future. Objective 3 was that the main corridors in the town of Rome provide a first impression of the town for many visitors. It's imperative that they be first class. This brought up a lot of conversation about the Gateway Overlay District in that one with the comments that were received. Four was to preserve and protect open space corridors, forest lands, wetlands, groundwater, and other natural resources. Comments here, and I would say that this was kind of a theme throughout, that consider the impact to wildlife habitat, potential locations of rare plants, animal species, shoreland protection. That's a theme throughout all of the comments. 5, protect and maintain high water quality standards within the town. Again, a lot about 14 Mile Alliance and the work that they've done throughout all of these comments. 6, protect environmental and natural resources sensitive areas such as the floodplains, wetland areas from development. Objective 7, promote the town's thousands of acres of public and private forest lands that are available to the public and outdoor recreational activities such as hunting, fishing, hiking. Again, this comment echoes throughout, but this objective a lot about balancing growth between sustaining our balance with forest, wetlands, and water preservation. 8, encourage development where physical factors such as soil capability, steep slope would not be a detriment to the development. 9, preserve and protect some of the remaining areas of the town currently in agricultural production. And 10, strive to protect and enhance habitats for birds throughout the town.
Quick question, what is the red, you know?
So, if there was red on the comments, that usually meant that it was a grammatical change. So instead of, it, like policy 4 says to seek a the designation as a bird city, it's to maintain, because we have become a bird city. So if you see red on your comments, that's usually because it was a grammatical item, not just a statement.
And some of these items that are within the objectives, and also the general comments, and this is just my take on it, but I see some of these as both applying to comp plan potentially, larger conversations, to maybe consider, also things that would potentially carry over to considerations, that the subcommittee would have with the zoning ordinance. So there's a lot in here, not all of them are necessarily things that, would necessitate a change to an objective. Some things are saying, I agree with this, we just need to do more, right? And if we need to do more, it may not be in the comp plan that we need to do more, because maybe it's in there. And this comment is saying, you know, it's in here, but we're not recognizing it. So, you know, maybe it's something that carries over to zoning ordinance, maybe it's something that, that is really just a larger conversation with how we go about addressing those things if we're not. So there's a lot in here that I see as more general comments that may carry over to zoning ordinances, larger conversations, other citizen groups. There are some mentions about some of the citizen groups and how those groups in our community can also assist. I think those are really valid points. But as we go through and consider text and map amendments to the comp plan and then the zoning ordinance after that, and there may be larger conversations that we can have maybe on a community level with how we go about getting everybody on the same pages and recognizing our plan, our enforcement or our rules, and then how everybody can assist with that.
Is the general feeling of this committee to that protection of forest land, water, having that, maybe that importance that if we do have things like gateway overlay or certain zones or districts, that's that priority of maintaining the natural resources that we have here? I mean, I guess I felt that theme throughout, that we really wanna have that protection in place.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Definitely, it's what made this town.
Yeah.
Without our forest land and recreational land, we're gonna feel it economically.
We don't wanna look like 13th, Highway 13 in Rapids. We wanna have the rustic look.
The good news is, and Water Committee approved the forest, county forest ordinance today, so now it's gotta go through county board, but one step farther.
Is it gonna go through county board this month, or will that be next month?
It's supposed to be this month, next Tuesday. Took them 6 months to get through.
Did the ordinance also have a map by chance, or are they just, they're very early on, but at least we're making progress?
They're only talking about the property that you currently have in the county forest, which is 160 acres,
Got it.
county-owned property.
Which is all in the town of Rome.
Yeah. It's all back over here.
We have, huh?
It's all back over here.
It's a 40 down
Off
by,
of- Oh,
yeah. 120 goes around Seven Sisters, and 40 that's by the Camelot boat landing.
So chapter 3 in housing, that one had 7 objectives. I would say less comments, on the objectives of chapter 3. I would say as we went through the process, and some of the chapters towards the end are smaller, the slightly less comments to the objectives that are in the plan, but, again, just general comments about maintaining and improving our existing housing stock. A lot of comments about, requirements so we don't have blighted properties in residential areas. And increasing different housing options. I think there's been, more need to see, workforce housing or seasonal housing for workforce, whether that's apartments or rentals of some sort for them. But having multifamily available while still maintaining our single-family residence feel. Any additional thoughts on that chapter? So transportation actually has 3 main goals, within the comp plan. It's one of the few chapters that has more than one goal. All of them have multiple objectives, but has more than one goal. Interesting comments here about alternative fuel sources or having the availability for alternative planning, thinking about alternative vehicles and types into the future. A lot of talk on road improvements, and maintaining our roads here, which has also been a big conversation at town board. Interesting also that gateway overlay comes up again, in this district, likely more as grammatical, but just maintaining that visual, of when entering and exiting the town. Bike and ped also, bike and pedestrian, comments within this chapter. Any additional thoughts or comments we wanna add to chapter 4 on transportation? Chapter 5 on utilities and community facilities. updates in this chapter as far as changing Alpine Business Park to Rome Town Center, adding in some of our recent changes with moving to Lifestar and, changes within our businesses as far as dental clinic and Aspirus here. So more grammatical in nature to bring the plan up since it was last done. But also, comments about, one of our big goals, which is to get sewer into Rome Town Center, to encourage additional development. Thinking about how police and fire services work into utilities and community facilities, and incorporating the comprehensive outdoor recreational plan that we did, the outcomes of that plan into this chapter.
On that goal too, related to that outdoor recreation plan, this bolded underlined language, is that true that that's a gap that we have, where that not being incorporated in this is creating some sort of eligibility issue?
So not with it not being incorporated into comp plan, but we did need it in order to apply for grants. So now that we have it, it's, yeah.
So I think I may have given that recommendation. The reason I put that there was part of why we have a corp is so we can be eligible for that. I think it's just recognizing that in our comp plan is a good thing. It's really the next phase after getting that in place is so we can go after that stuff. So.
Chapter 6 on economic development. Comments here about incorporating the Adams County Economic Development Corporation, because the CDA has formed a relationship with Derek, and we've been doing, utilizing different resources as far as access to grants. We did a business survey, but incorporating those items within this chapter for economic development. And also incorporating, some of our other community organizations that we have strong partnerships with, that we do a lot of coordination with, like Visit Rome and Draft and Snow Bandits. I'm gonna add one to here that I didn't previously, but with Adams County Economic Development, also talk about the Create Center and making that sort of our center for entrepreneurship, within the county.
The survey we just did, is that considered a business retention survey?
Yes, you would consider it a business retention survey, yeah. Yep. Because if there would be someone that would identify issues, you would hope that it would come through that survey and that you could help them through that issue, and that would retain their business here. Yep.
Instead of, cause this is sort of future speaking, would you rather just put a cadence in there for it?
Yep, and we've talked about that at CDA about every other year or 18
Yeah.
months, yep. Chapter 7 on land use, again, that rural atmosphere, maintaining that rural atmosphere was, again, that theme, talking about map number 9, which is the future land use map and the importance of that map and the overall plan, and identifying what we have for, what we'd like to see in those areas for future land use. Encouraging areas of existing development rather than creating areas of new development, protect our natural resources, the county forest program mentioned several times. development that doesn't negatively impact the area's groundwater, surface water, natural resources.
I'm just gonna add a comment that, I mean, it's already called out in here kinda, but that map is, and one of the most important parts of the plan in my mind, and it's one that we alter far too often, so there's gonna be a lot of time spent on what needs to happen there.
Yeah,
We definitely alter it too often.
it would make sense that as the subcommittee and then each of your groups goes through particularly this section, the land use section, then a fair bit of time then be spent on that future land use map and making any recommendations that would come from that. As Supervisor Goldman mentions, the Plan Commission, it only takes looking at the Plan Commission's monthly agenda, you know, as a quick look to see that the Plan Commission gets requests to amend the comp plan, future land use map, often. And sometimes it's relatively minor things like pulling some out of forest land to do rural estate residence, right, or rural residential. Other times it's to make into very small lots and subdivisions where we may have other areas on our future land use map and with our current zoning that is more appropriate for those kind of things. And the Plan Commission has started to really make that point to those that have come with those requests to make clear that we have those areas designated already in the town, and maybe in line with what we had in other elements of this comp plan, maybe we don't want to pull all our forest land out for these small lots, subdivisions, or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking this chapter is the meat of this whole situation.
Yeah, it kind of boils to this, right? But all of the elements do feed towards consideration of our zoning and all of that, but from a comp plan perspective, this is the one that gets utilized a lot.
It's also the one, oftentimes, people will call and say, do you think the town would like this? And this is the first place, like, we send them the future land use map, like, where have you identified this? Is it identified as a use that would be in this area? It just makes it much more clear than, well, if, I have this idea, is it identified? Do we have a place identified for it? The last chapter, chapter 8, intergovernmental cooperation, it's a very short chapter. Not a lot of comments about it. We did talk about adding in, if we do any agreements for the potential sanitary sewer, that those cooperations with other municipalities would be added in here. And fire and ambulance service, I know that was also a piece now that we've made those upgrades. And if we do any other additional cooperative relationships with municipalities, that those are added into this chapter.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Then we should go on to number 8 then. Okay. Discussion and possible action, appointment of 2 CDA committee members to serve on a joint subcommittee for the update of the Town of Rome Comprehensive Plan and potential recommendation of zoning code amendments. Anybody have any interest?
And also just a quick point that, and this works both for 8 and 9, along with recognizing those individuals that would be the subcommittee members, you could also put somebody in as an alternate. I know we had that with the Town Center Subcommittee at one point where there was going to be an extended time that one of those members couldn't, where the alternate, maybe at the time, maybe like today, one of these, some individual maybe can't commit or isn't ready to be a member, but would be willing to serve as an alternate. I know in past we've used alternates with some success.
as a CDA member, I would like to recommend Bill Koppel as one of the CDA representatives.
I second that one.
My watch agrees. I said I would volunteer to serve, and I will, if chosen.
We need to make motions for the appointments, or?
Well, we can do what we're doing and identify people, and then what I would recommend is then the CDA for number 8, make a motion to appoint those 2 individuals. But we can just have the conversation at this point to get the people recognized, and make sure that they're okay to serve on that subcommittee.
Hey, if they miss the meeting, no.
You never wanna miss a meeting.
Never miss a meeting.
Jamie just wants to bake it on it.
Get voluntold.
Yep.
We aren't to that item yet. We're still on CDA.
Are we missing anybody other than Carl from CDA?
Connie.
Yes, I was like, I think one more, Connie,
Yeah,
thank you.
Connie's missing.
Oh, there's the alternate.
Yep.
I don't think she would take it.
Cheryl, would you be interested?
I could possibly do an alternate. Time constraints throughout the summer is very hard for me, in my business. And so it probably wouldn't be wise for me to try to make a full commitment right now. Unless somebody wants to go late at night at 8 o'clock or something, because it's about my only free time.
Well, Carl's not here. Where's the other member?
Sharon, would you be interested at all?
I would do it. I'll do it. As long as there's an alternate, because I have,
Yeah.
you know, my own situation
Right.
and stuff like that. I'd love to commit. Okay.
And I will back you up on that.
Okay,
I
thanks.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Jerry, do you just wanna amend your motion then for Bill, Sharon, and Cheryl as alternate?
Okay. Yes, I'll make that amendment to appoint Bill, and Sharon as delegates and, Cheryl as the alternate from the CDA.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Everybody okay, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, if you're on plan commission, don't vote for that.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Bill and Sharon. Thank you. All right, so then number 9 is discussing and possible action, appointment of 2 planning commission members to serve on a joint subcommittee for the update of the town of Rome comp plan and potential recommendations of zoning code amendments.
So we'll take a plan commission member that would make that motion in second, which could also be Jerry.
I would, well, we're just making recommendations at this point, right? Jeff, are you willing to serve?
I think I am maxed out, but bear in mind, I'm gonna, apply for the grant writing.
He's gonna have other.
Yeah, there's that grant writing, committee that we're putting together.
Okay, good. We need your expertise.
I'm not here. I don't know. Really.
Ask how much time do you have available?
I really don't have a lot of time available unless this is going to be participating remotely or something. But
I figured that.
What do you think is the time claim?
Well, part of that is still subject to discussion in number 10, as far as when during the day and, how often a month, potentially. So it really, that's going to be up to, once we figure out who's on this, to figure out what their schedules look like. So, it can be once a month, morning, afternoon, evening. It can be really anything that works for the subcommittee to be able to all meet.
I think when we did Rome Town Center, we did twice a month. It was a little bit more than monthly.
Yeah, I think it was twice a month, some
Yeah.
months,
Every other week.
you know.
And we made it through
Early
in,
afternoon, sound right? Like 1 o'clock-ish?
Yeah, we were meeting,
In the after, it
we were
was
meeting
early.
at 1 or 11. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
1.
I think it was 1 right after lunch.
We had food.
There was food.
There was
Yeah.
food.
It's an
There was
important
food.
factor. Snacks.
Just one other question, what do we figure the duration would be? I mean, I know that's hard to say, but.
Yeah,
talking a
well,
couple
it's,
months or
it-
the
you
rest
know,
of the
it-
year?
when you wrap in both the comp plan and the zoning ordinance, we're talking quite a bit of time. We have 7 elements in the comp plan that were just reviewed. Keep in mind, there could also be substitutes, right? So maybe at this point, somebody is willing to do the comp plan part, and then once we get to the zoning ordinance, maybe step away and we put somebody else in. So if you're just looking at comp plan, probably 3-4 months. If you're looking at zoning ordinance as well, where we have a lot probably to cover, maybe 7-8 months, maybe more. Just depends on how often we meet every month.
I would say a year.
Well, Mike's not here, and I think he would be a great candidate to be on this as a delegate from Plan Commission. I would think he would accept.
And if not, he'll never miss another meeting.
True,
Right?
he lured.
Hard way.
I would go as an alternate,
As much as I'd love to raise my hand, if I do it, we're gonna have to have some flexibility on when we're scheduling these. I mean,
Or
the- the-
evenings.
evenings is preferable, but that first Tuesday, since they seem to not mind me there anymore, so I'm here for utilities, so if we can combine it with that somehow.
Yeah, we probably can. We can have that conversation if we, it makes sense, right? Cause you already have a day that you're,
Yeah, I'm in town.
Yeah, and we don't have to notice these, right?
no, these have to be noticed.
They have to be noticed.
Yeah.
There goes the flexibility.
Well, it can be I can commit in advance, right? But I'm saying
Yeah,
it's
so-
not gonna be, 1 PM every 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, so
like
every
that.
meeting is probably going to have next agenda and time, and so,
Figure out when
I
it
mean,
happens.
there can be some flexibility, certainly, it doesn't have to be every month at the same exact time, there can be flexibility there. But we do have to notice it.
I'll stick my neck out as a Plan Commission member. I'll make a motion that we appoint Mike Baker and Dan Goman as members from this Plan Commission, and Paul as the alternate.
I'll second that.
So then could you just ask plan commission members to vote all in favor, please?
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Yes. All right, thank you guys.
Opposed? Anybody opposed?
Anybody opposed? All right, motion carried, thank you.
I'll be honest, I was scared to second it.
All right, so number 10, determine tentative schedule and timeline for joint subcommittee meetings.
I don't have a problem with meeting like we did today before the planning commission. That's working for
Oh.
Dan.
Dan, did that work, I mean, is that going to work
Well,
most months to meet before the
yeah,
plan commission?
yeah, if we did that, and I could, yeah.
Does that be second Tuesday instead of first?
Yeah, it doesn't
Tuesday?
align with that, but I can make that work.
Good, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, if we did 3 o'clock before plan. It also makes it easier for agenda notices because we can put them together at the same time.
That doesn't collide with CDA though, does it?
No, cause that's Thursdays.
Right.
Jamie, when does the Fire and Police Commission meet? Is that used to be on the same day that we did, but I don't know if that's changed.
Mondays.
Okay, well then Mike would be okay with that.
Yep. Yep.
Plus, anybody on the plan commission, as long as they don't have a commitment right before it, that should work well for anybody that's on the plan commission, just to be a bit earlier.
Truthfully, next month, it's all gonna be on the same Tuesday with utility committee anyway,
So,
Yeah,
the way it worked out.
cause election is the 5th, so.
that's right.
All right, great, thank you. And, next agenda items?
So I think that's just a rolling thing on every one of our agendas. I don't think there would be anything for this joint meeting or joint group to set for our next agenda. I think, just as we had discussed earlier, the next steps then will be that subcommittee to meet. There will be updates likely planned for each of your respective committees and commissions to be updated, provide input as we kind of go along, and then there'll be reports as we finish each of these. I'd call them steps, right? Step 1 is comp plan. Step 2 will be the zoning ordinance.
So Emily will send out a meeting invite for the 6th, so even if you're an alternate, we'll still load that meeting to your calendar, just so you see it. But if someone would say they couldn't be there, then we'll communicate with the alternate about attendance.
Okay.
But alternates would always be welcome to if they just wanted to be at the meeting, as anybody would be too.
And so then the subcommittee is going to meet on the 12th.
12th at 3 p.m.
Excellent, thank you.
So next meeting date and time to be determined?
So
Number-
this-
Number 12 on the agenda here?
Yep, so the joint committee likely won't have a next meeting date and time,
Right.
but then the new subcommittee will be.
Subcommittees,
Yep,
alright.
April 12th.
Thank you. Well, then if there's nothing else, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank